like parents just really don't get it. And interesting, in the hero's journey, I just got the latest edition of Christopher Vogler's book, The Writer's Journey, which is like a simplified version of the monolith. And I'm reading about the atonement of the father is one of the things that Joseph Campbell mapped out as being in all of the classic stories in history, as being a really big thing, and how in different stories it exhibits in different ways, but ultimately being able to have a parent recognize that the wrong path that he took actually worked out.
Heroes are an inspiring group of people. Every one of them, from the larger-than-life comic book heroes you see on the big silver screen, to everyday heroes that let us live the privileged lives we do. Every hero has a story to tell, from the doctor saving lives at your local hospital, to the war veteran down the street who risked his life for our freedom, to the police officers and the firefighters who risk their safety to ensure ours. Every hero is special and every story worth telling. But there is one class of heroes that I think is often ignored: the entrepreneur, the creator, the producer. The ones who look at the problems in this world and think to themselves, you know what, I can fix that. I can help people. I can make a difference. Then they go out and do exactly that by creating a new product or introducing a new service. Some go on to change the world. Others make a world of difference to their customers. Welcome to The Hero Show. Join us as we pull back the masks on the world's finest heropreneurs and learn the secrets to their powers, their success, and their influence, so you can use those secrets to attract more sales, make more money, and experience more freedom in your business. I'm your host, Richard Matthews, and we are on in 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome back to The Hero Show. My name is Richard Matthews, and today I have live on the line with me Nate Wright. Nate, are you there?
Yep.
Awesome. And we were just talking before the interview. You actually live in the town I was born in, which is pretty cool. I got family that lives out there in Southern California. So, cool to have you on from there. And for our listeners who are following along, we are still stuck in our travels in Kissimmee, Florida, but we did finally get an out date. We can start traveling a little bit with this whole crisis thing that's been going on. How's the crisis been treating you out there in SoCal?
It's there's just a lot of uncertainty still. Like, we're opening, we're not opening. I've got a kid in school, so it's the waiting game constantly. Waiting to see what's going to happen, and of course smoke. We were getting, yesterday it looked like a Martian.
Oh yeah, all the fires
outside the house. Yeah.
My dad lives up in Fresno area, and I called him on FaceTime yesterday, and I was just completely orange. It was really weird looking.
Oh yeah.
So hopefully you guys are doing all right with all the fires and everything and staying safe.
Yeah, no, staying safe. We're in a relatively safe spot. We're right next to Camp Pendleton, so they don't let fires last that long. When you're next to them.
Yeah, they don't want to blow up all the military stuff
really quickly. So,
one of the things that, just because you mentioned being next to Camp Pendleton, where we grew up in across the valley in Marietta, Temecula, I remember growing up, and whenever they did their war games type stuff, you could hear the bombs going off of things that they were testing. And they'd always have like notifications over the radio or the TV. They'd be like, "Hey, just so you know, don't call the police. That's just Camp Pendleton running in this test."
Yeah. Well,
So,
it's a couple
probably even worse if you're on.
Now, actually, that it goes
all the time.
I'm right next to one of the back gate, one of the gates of Camp Pendleton, and it's pretty constant. They really like blowing things up.
The loud booms.
Yeah, it's
Testing something.
Like shake the house status though. It's like, is this an earthquake,
nice.
or are they just exercising again? Yeah, it's a little much sometimes.
Cool.
But
So
I'm still appreciative of having them so close.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let me go ahead and go through your bio here real quick for our listeners who don't know who you are. So Nate Wright is a business copywriter and email marketing expert. His unapologetically human approach to the discipline has been featured by MailChimp, Mailshake, Pitch Anything, and Bloomberg. Nate lives in Oceanside, California with an idiot mutt, a blind dachshund, a feisty teenage daughter, and an oh-so-patient wife, which sounds like a lot of fun. We currently have 3 daughters and a son and a dog and a cat and a baby raccoon that we're taking care of in a 40-foot RV. So same kind of crazy going on over here.
Sounds not prudent. That's the nicest way to say it. That sounds great, man.
It sounds crazy. It is. It's a very busy household.
Oh,
Very busy household, but it's good for us. So, with that quick introduction, Nate, what I want to start off with
mhm.
is who you are now, right? What's your business like? Who do you serve? What are your primary like services that you offer? Like, basically, what do you sell? Who do you sell it to?
uh, I sell email to businesses. I would say about half of it is, uh, people selling stuff online. So you think like Mailchimp, Campaign Monitor, Klaviyo, so online stores, and the other half is business to business. So people trying to sell services, consulting, more complex and more expensive stuff via email.
Yeah, yeah.
That's roughly the split there. Some of it's copywriting, some of it's execution, some of it's tech stack setup, but it's all email and things that touch email. So we're not LinkedIn, the most knowledgeable LinkedIn people in history, but we know a ton about LinkedIn because it's one of our weapons of choice when running email campaigns. So,
Awesome.
uh,
So just
yeah.
out of curiosity, with the email stuff, are you running pre-transaction like sales stuff to people who've opted in, or are you doing like post-transaction follow-up to create more sales? Like what's
all
your
of,
do you have
all
a
of the
focus, or
above.
is it all anything all
Yeah,
of the
all of
above?
the above. So we chose to years ago and we decided to niche down from Jacks and Jills of all trades into something specific. We thought about going industry specific, but at the last minute we opted for a discipline specific approach. We just focus on email and making that piece of people's world work a little better. So we'll even touch things like
Yeah,
transaction,
yeah.
deliverability, stuff like that. Keeps us pretty busy.
And I noticed I missed the business name in the bio, so it's Inbox Attack, and you said we. Is it you guys have an organization, or is it just you, or
Uh,
how's
you
that
know,
going? How's that work?
I've got a couple of business partners that they're basically all former interns that kept showing up over and over, day after day, and now they were all equal partners. So one of them's in Texas, Seth, and he runs the e-commerce side of the email business. Other one's David. He's in LA, and he runs the B2B side. And I run more of the big picture and the copywriting piece. So the actual content creation piece is more of my
And
realm. We've got
the
our
promotion coming on podcasts like this.
yeah, yeah. It's we like playing with podcast booking emails. It's one of the few areas where we could get a little. Well, we could break a lot of rules. So it's like
Yeah.
we've done some stuff that looking back on, I was like, that was not a good idea. Like, how many cuss words could I fit into one email and get past the spam filter just for fun? No, but yeah, that's honestly one of our. I want to say it's the most unique thing that we do, but it's an area that we're investing a lot more time in and energy in right now. And the business is how to help people in the business worlds raise their influence and raise their status, uh,
Hmm.
and less about the Instagram paid influencer world and more about business influence. And podcasts are one of many areas to do that. Uh, not for everyone, but it's something that's been good to us. And we've tried hosting a couple podcasts over the years, and we're really bad at it. So I'm happy being a guest. It's really nice not having to deal with the other stuff.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not a very good listener.
That's
Sorry.
actually I had the thing that I discovered in my life is that I wanted to run this show, and then we got like 8 episodes into it, and I realized that I was terrible at everything that you have to do after you hit the stop record button. Um, so I built a business that did all of that thing.
Oh wow.
And so we run a podcast, a full service podcasting agency, where we handle everything that happens after someone hits the stop record button for them all the way through. And I did that mostly because I didn't want to do it for my show, and now we have an agency that does it. So, anyways, I get it. I'm terrible at
Yeah.
the whole
No, it's
podcasting thing too, but I am really good at this part, the interviewing. That's it. It's the only thing I'm good at.
no, I'm good about writing about it. And I know enough to, and that's the problem. I know enough to be dangerous in most areas, and dangerous being the key term here. I've gotten And I still to this day end up in projects like, what was I thinking? I know that I'm not good at this. Why am I like, 50 hours into this project right now? What was I thinking? But I'm a slow learner.
That is a lesson that we all have to struggle with, and I think the longer I get into business, the more I realize like the shorter that amount of time is getting when I get into a project instead of like 50 hours, now it's like 10 hours before I'm like, wait a second, maybe I shouldn't be here
Mhm.
doing this thing.
Yeah, I mean, we
So
apply it.
getting better.
Well, that's one of the benefits of having business partners right now is it's a really good sanity check. So we have no fly zones for types of projects and types of clients we won't work with, and that no fly zone has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger over the years. And uh, sometimes we'll like one of the partners like, oh man, like these guys have a lot of money and I think would really be able to rock the project. And I was like, yeah, but they're an MLM. And we said years ago we would never, ever, 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 ever do that again. So it's nice to have kind of that some accountability partners. They're not just friends. Like
Yeah.
they have a very heavy stake in the outcome. Yeah, we had to terminate a relationship with one of our biggest clients in the history of our business this past year. Yeah, no
Ooh,
fly
that's rough.
zones, the thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, what I want to find out from you then, Nate,
Hmm.
is how you got into this business of email, right? So, we talk on this show all the time. Every good comic book's hero has an origin story, right? It's the
Yep.
thing that made them into the hero they are today. We want to hear that story, basically. Were you born a hero? Were you bit by a radioactive spider that made you fall in love with writing, copywriting, and email? Or did you start in a job and eventually move to becoming an entrepreneur? Basically, we want to know where you came from and how you got inbox attacks started.
I needed to make rent, honestly. Uh, that's the shortest version. I needed to make rent, and I had done a lot of boring writing as like a middle manager when I was in the Air Force. I was an officer in the Air Force, and it was basically just a
Yeah.
lot of paperwork, sent a lot of emails, and I spent a little bit of time as a headhunter after the military, and I was okay at it. And that involved sending a lot of emails and basic, really, really rudimentary marketing and a whole lot of sales, dialing for dollars. Um, and I needed to make rent, and I called uh, one of my old clients up from a company I worked for about a year. And I was like, hey, I'm hard up for money. Do you have anything that needs doing? I'm desperate. And he's like, well, I'm opening a new store. I said, okay, I'll work on that. That's what I did. So uh, there's just a lot of late nights learning, basically taking their list of all the things they said they needed and just figuring it out. Everything from, I remember staying up till 3 a.m. trying to figure out how to, modify rocket theme templates, old Joomla templates, years ago. And I
Oh, I
remember,
remember Rocket Theme. That was a long time ago.
yep, yep, they were a big player back in the day, not so much anymore. But, then, figuring out Facebook before they even had an ad platform, and Twitter and MailChimp. And uh, eventually I had ended up working at a screenwriting school in Seattle. And I had gone to their 3 week like boot camp program, which is phenomenal. Such a good program. 6 days a week, 12 hours, 14 hours a day of just writing. And it was brutal, like brain melting,
Wow.
like brutal. But I learned
Yeah.
a whole lot about the structure behind writing and the psychology and the mythology and all, like the hero stuff that you're talking about. Learned all about that and had forgotten about it for a while. And I connected with the executive director, and they needed to have postcards about the school put into Starbucks. Starbucks say, hey, we're not going to give your nonprofit money. We're going to let you have a little itty bitty space and 10 Starbucks stores. And eventually, it became 20, and I had to go and refill for $60 a month. I refilled postcards in the Starbucks. And they say, hey, Nate, do you know how to do this Facebook stuff? And I was like, sure. Super didn't. Figured that out. Maybe we should get a newsletter. Nate, do you know how to do that? Sure. I super didn't know how to do that. And over time, I got better and better at it. And one of my interns there, Seth, now owns a third of the company. He does all the newsletter stuff now. And, but ultimately, I just needed to make rent. And I was a full-time single dad, so I couldn't really have a regular job. So that's circumstance.
They say necessity is the mother of invention, right?
I suppose. There was a lot of Craigslist. I remember for a while there, I bought a big old, it was a 1979 Ford F-150, like a beer bottle brown pickup truck for like $800 in Seattle because gas was like $5 a gallon back then. So everyone was getting rid of their gas culture. It was like, I'll take it. Like, not very smart. You know, I'm a writer, not a mathematician, but I got it anyways. And in order to pay for gas in that big old gas guzzler, I would haul trash for people. So when you needed something hauled away in Craigslist, they'd give me like, you know, $80, so enough to basically cover gas, a little bit of beer money, and the dump fee. And I'd get in my button-down shirt and drive to my office job that I had at the time. And during my lunch break, I'd go empty out the back of the truck at the dump down the road, clean myself off in the bathroom, and go back to work. And I did that for years.
Nice.
Yeah, it's
so
super glamorous.
This whole journey of learning how to be like a jack of all trades, so to speak, in the marketing world. When did you make the decision to niche down into email specifically, and how did that niching down sort of impact your?
It was a combination of what we were good at, what we could sell. The stuff I'm good at that I'm not good at selling, and also just demand, like where the market was going. And it seemed like something that wasn't platform independent. Like email is vendor and platform and agnostic across the board. So it felt like a safe move, and not like a future-proofed ish. Nothing's totally future-proof. It was something we're pretty good at. Back then, when we made the decision, we weren't amazing at it. We were above average, to be honest, 5-6 years ago. And so it was a process of just shedding things that weren't making money, and also a lot of it was just stuff we really, really didn't like doing. I could sell websites all day long, and it's just like the level of anxiety came out of website projects was just too much. It was too much. It wasn't worth any amount of money.
A lot of truth to that.
Yeah. So it was very much kind of a combination of things, but ultimately the, burning the ships in the harbor in this case, I don't know if you know that metaphor.
I do not know that metaphor. That's a new one for me.
Quick segue. So it was a story, and honestly, it's likely a mashup of a lot of different stories because that's how old history is usually retold. But I think it was a Chinese or Japanese admiral or general was working his way south, just conquering coastal city after coastal city after coastal city, and they're crushing it and big army. They get near the bottom, and they're 5, 6, 7 years into their big campaign. The troops and the sailors are totally worn out, and they really just want to go home. And by this time, they're really far from home. So you got a bunch of homesick, cranky dudes that really don't want to fight. So the story goes that they went to their last spot, and the general sent some guys back to the ships and set the ships on fire, burned them all. And then he told his troops, he says, this is where we're stopping, guys. So if you want to go back home, we have to defeat this city, and then you could go home. And it was a really insurmountable task. It was like 10-1 odds, and they eventually conquered. Some of the people stayed. They never went back home. And I think it's in modern day Macaw. Uh, as I said, a mashup of a lot of stories. I've heard certain stories said that's totally bull,
That's
and
cool.
others say that it's totally true. I don't know, but that the idea of burning the ships in the harbor is kind of forging commitment. Like not making this, that is a
You make
hard
yourself, this is what
commitment.
we're
Like
gonna do.
yeah. So
Nice. So that's how you ended up in the email space. Like, hey, this is just
yep.
what we're gonna do, and we're gonna go for it. So I like it. So I want to talk a little bit about your superpowers then, right? So every iconic hero has a superpower, whether that's a fancy flying suit or a genius intellect, or the ability to call thunder down from the sky. In the real world, heroes have what I call a zone of genius, which is a skill or set of skills that energize everything else that they do, right? It's sort of the common thread that runs through all of your other skills. This superpower is what sets you apart. It allows you to help people slay their villains in their story, right? And help them come out on top of their journey. So, with that framing, what do you think your superpower is in your business?
It's blending skills, actually. Uh, I'm not, another a little diversion here, but this is the best way for me to explain it. Uh, in the Sword and the Stone, right? King Arthur, the future King Arthur, is a young boy, an orphan boy, who was sent to get a sword for his like bully of a you know stepbrother or whatever. And he goes into this empty courtyard and pulls a sword from the stone. The backstory of all that is Merlin finds Wart, the future King Arthur, and transforms him into all these different creatures, into a fish. And as a fish, he learns how to breathe water. As a bird, he learns how to look with monocular versus binocular vision. As a snake, he learns how to use the stomach muscles. As an insect, he learns how to see differently and fly differently. And, so he learns all these different things. And when he first tries to pull the sword from the stone, he can't do it. And the ghosts of all of these different creatures that had been his teachers helped him and coached him on how to combine the skills just right to pull the sword from the stone. So for me, email is an area that I ended up because it blended psychology, a lot of psychology, sales, and just writing. So, storytelling, the actual craft of writing. And it's a lot less businessy marketing than people think. It's probably like 10% marketing and 90% those other things. But it's
mostly
just out of necessity. I had to do that. I remember going to sell a website and Facebook package to one of my first clients, and I didn't have any money, and I had enough gas to get to the appointment, but not back. And I hadn't had the daughter at daycare.
So you had to sell.
I knew that I had to close the deal and get paid on the spot. Otherwise, I couldn't put gas in my car and pick up my kid from daycare and get home. So those kinds of situations taught me how to sell. And then over the years, I've had countless teachers and mentors and people that have taught me different complementary skills. But I would say that at the moment, psychology and mythology are probably the two that I rely on the most to be able to convince a stranger to click on something or to open something.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. It reminds me of a book that I read just recently by Scott Adams. He's the author of the Dilbert comics,
Yep.
And he has a book that just came out called, I think it's called Win Bigly, right? How to Fail at Everything in Life and Still Succeed, and which I thought was a great title. But one of the concepts he talks about in that book is how to become a world class at anything, and the thing that he talks about is blending skills, right? And he's like, if you become to become the best in the world in one thing is really, really difficult because there's so many people who are so good at so many things, right? And so to become world class in one thing, that's really difficult. But if you take that and you marry two skills together, and if you become in the top 10% on two skills, Now you're in the top 20% in the world, which is really easy. Now, and if you take that and you do 3 skills, but you're really good here and really good here and really good here, and you get into the top 10% of 3 different skills, where those 3 intersect, you're probably in the top 1% of the world of people who can do what you do, right? And have that mashup of skills. And so he calls it skill stacking, right? And I was like, it's the same kind of thing, right? You stack a couple of skills, get really, really good, which it's not difficult to get into the top 10% skill wise in any particular field. But when you blend those
from
together
the 10%
with other skills,
to the top 1%,
world class.
Really hard.
Yeah, yeah. And that's where, coming in and when you can combine psychology and combine sales and combine that with writing and put it together in email, that's you can become one of the best in the world, right? And like I said earlier, you guys have been featured all over the place with Inbox Attack. So
yeah, no,
sounds like you're on that path.
It's interesting. Like you're in the podcast ecosystem, right? And that idea of building status. There are certain industries and certain disciplines, certain arts, if you will, that it isn't a pointy pyramid. There isn't one person at top. It's more of like a plateau, like a pyramid with
everyone's up there.
Yeah, and that's where I feel like I'm at right now.
For the SoCal people, the Santa Rosa Plateau.
That's right. I spent my best friend in like the 2nd or 3rd grade got bit in the shin by a baby rattlesnake on the Santa Rosa Plateau. They had to be airlifted out.
Ooh,
he was like a celebrity at the school for a while. Yeah, total not relevant at all story, but it's yeah.
So,
but that's
you think
the thing.
Email is sort of like that as a plateau?
Yeah. What's that?
I said, just like being at the top of the email game, you're sort of at the top of a plateau of a bunch of companies.
And that's the thing that we're looking at right now is like, okay, so we're amongst all these, like, I would say 10 to 20, people and agencies and teams and thought leaders that are, I would consider all pretty badass at email. So do I move up that way, or do I make my own little tower over here? Like just B2B email, or is e-commerce email, or creative email, or nurturing email, or do I add a different skill set, like the blending, like into like SMS, which is a big thing right now? I don't know. We're doing a lot of experimentation right now and seeing what sticks. So, I wish I knew what it was going to take to actually do that.
Well, it's an interesting game that you have to play once you sort of get to the to the top, right? Because how do you go to the next level? And especially like, what does that look like? Maybe. Well, I like that metaphor of, right? Now you're building a tower on top of the plateau.
Yeah, and who even measures it, right? Like, it's hard enough, like with emails, like, oh, I've got a gazillion subscribers, or a trillion billion followers and likes, and I've got this clout score when that was a thing, and all these different ways of measuring it. And then you look at podcasts, and it's like someone asked me the other day, like, well, I'm thinking about like getting into podcast dates. So like, what's who's got the best podcast in this category? I said, I have no idea. Well, like, could we just look up the amount of downloads they have? I was like, not really. No, you're going to have to like kind of duct tape together like 15 to 20 different databases to get a kind of accurate picture. And
what's interesting is, like, because we're in the podcast space ourselves, you have podcasters that are podcasting for different reasons, right? So you have podcasters who are podcasting because they want to be a local celebrity, and all they're looking to do is get known in an area. And you have people who are looking to top charts, and you have looking to people who are trying to build a advertising revenue, right? So your big political channels and whatnot that are they're basing their whole revenue on advertising and whatnot, and so that's all viewership, and they're entirely different goals. Like, my show benefits my business whether or not we have viewers, right? And so, like,
I get
the metrics for measuring the success of our show are very different than someone whose revenue is dependent on their viewership. So it's really hard to measure that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I know, and maybe that's a good thing that it can't be easily measured, because as soon as you could measure it, you could game the system and hack it. You could, like, clout scores,
and you
people
can app it up,
nobodies
right?
were able to get really high clout scores. They hacked it immediately. They were able to not hack it, but you know, optimize, creatively optimize.
Yeah, that's the thing about algorithms and AI is we're just not anywhere near to the point where AI is intelligent enough not to be gamed even by dumb humans. So
Yeah.
we're a ways away from that.
Well, marketers do ruin everything. I
Uh,
mean, I thought it was just a clever little saying, but I actually believe that now. Like anything digital,
yeah, the longer you spend,
as soon as a marketer gets his hand on it, it's done. It's done. I'm probably
yeah,
responsible for a couple of platforms getting shut down.
the more time you spend in the marketing world, the more you realize that marketers are the worst, but they're also
Oh
the
yeah.
best. So it's a weird dichotomy of like you have some of the best products in the world and some of the best services in the world wouldn't exist if it wasn't for great marketing. And the same is true on the worst products in the world that shouldn't even see the light of day.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. It's like the stuff you see, like products, like physical products, the stuff you see at like Walmart and Target,
Mhm.
on the Amazon choice category. Like they're all right, but it's not that they're not amazing. Like, I guess
Yeah,
it's that like,
it's like
well,
that's
it's
the new version of the
yes,
S in on TV label.
yeah, it's like being super okay. It's like you're like the highest level of the mediocrity possible. I'm super okay.
I love that. I'm super okay. That's a good way to put that.
I'll put up. Now I want to make a bunch of
Cool.
T-shirts.
I want to move on and talk a little bit about your fatal flaw, right? So if your superpower is the whole blended skills thing, your fatal flaw, is the flip side of that, right? So every Superman has his kryptonite. Every Wonder Woman can't remove her bracelets of victory without going mad. You probably have a flaw that's held you back in your business, something that you struggled with. For me, it was a couple of things. It was perfectionism that kept me from shipping product and shipping services and actually getting things out to market. Or it was a lack of self-care, which, early in my entrepreneur career, I let my clients walk all over me, and all the problems that go along with that. So things like that. But I think more important than what the flaw is how you've worked to overcome it or rectify it in your business. So people who are listening might learn a little bit from your experience.
Well, I mean, there's past flaws that think I've solved, and current flaws. So there's a it's a two part.
So we're always growing, right?
Yeah, I would say past flaws. We talked about niching down before. Uh, is that fear of specialization? It was it wasn't as scary as had made it out to be in my head, and I still find myself kind of slip. I have to like check myself, or my business partners will check me. It's like, hey, remember we don't do that anymore, right, Nate? Remember that? Remember all those awful, awful things that happened, and those late nights and chargeback city and bad review city that happened when you did that? Remember? Uh, so that and honestly, that spills over into my like actual execution of the work. Like when we're crafting an email campaign for somebody, you know, getting our clients to permission to be really specific with the language and the email is so hard, because everyone wants. I mean, we talk about heroes, right? Everyone wants, deep down, they want to be a hero, or at least thought of in that sort of a way. But they want to be a hero. They want to save the world, not just one consumer or one business, and that's delusional, for lack of a better term. Straight up delusional thinking. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
it's a fairy tale, quite literally. It's a fairy tale.
That's my favorite example of that is that starfish story with the kid tossing the starfish into the water and the old man coming by and being like, "Why are you doing that? You can't save all of them." He's like, "Well, it matters to this one, and it matters to this one, right? So you have to learn how to be the hero to the one person you can make a difference for now."
Yeah, yeah, it's tough. You can't be everything to everybody, and that's, now I would say, current flaw. The one I'm working the most on right now is, my original business name was Small Biz Triage, but it wasn't until we shed that name last year and kind of really, like with our brand as well, really burned the ships in the harbor and fully committed to the email path, that I really understood what that meant. And of course, in the pandemic, it's people that didn't even know what triage was. Everyone knows what it is now, and understanding that they're like when someone calls me up and I have a lot of conversation with startups, I want to hire me, and usually startups are not a no fly zone, but it's a probably no zone for us. And the reason why is that it's selfishly for the long term survival of my business. I need, not just want, I need my clients to stay in the business. And some of the ideas people pitch to me and try to get me excited about just aren't good ideas. You know, they're actually like flawed in a very fundamental area, like not the market, the pricing models wrong, stuff that will absolutely destroy business. You don't need a crystal ball to be able to determine that. Well, if you do execute that and change nothing else, it's not going to work. Like the math doesn't work. And so knowing who to say no to is definitely been a flaw of mine, because I want so bad to help them out. Like, and they seem so excited when they get on the phone with me. It's like, oh man, it sounds like Nate really knows what he's talking about. This might be the one person that could help us get to this next level. And sometimes the issue is that, or sometimes people just aren't cut out to run their own business. There are things that they might get there, and I hope for all of their sake that they do make it there and reach that dream. But I'm not the one. I'm not going to be their Obi-Wan for that, because that's therapy, not marketing. And it happens a lot. There's a lot of dysfunction there, and so I've been working really hard to stay out of the codependency triangle with clients and future clients. Vendor partnerships, and make sure there's a certain level of, like, frankly, this, I mentioned psychology before, that plays in there. It's not just a marketing thing. I think it applies a lot to just running a healthy business.
Yeah, it does. And it's interesting because it's something that I'm currently making a transition like that in our business, where we're transitioning from what I was doing. We're still doing it for clients, where we're helping them build all of their online presence, right, and building
Yeah.
their products and services, and doing the instructional design and setting up the funnels and doing all, like, a whole full
Yep.
service thing for people, which is super cool, and I'm really, really good at it, and we get really good results for our clients. But it's just not scalable, and it never will be, because of
Yep.
the kind of work that we're doing. So it's like a 4-client maximum thing, like at any time. And we are in the process of growing our podcasting agency, which is actually, it's going really well. But at the same time,
Awesome.
when you're sort of like in the middle of that transition, you have people coming in on the one side that you're like, I can still help them. I can do that. I have the client space in the roster. And we can do all those things. But at the same time, like, the more you do that, the more you're like pushing off the growth of your other agency, which is scalable, and do those kind of things. So,
Yeah.
and part of that for us
I
is just learning to, niche
I
down
can't
and
agree
get
more.
really, really specific about what we're doing.
Yeah, I can't agree more. That transition is really, and I know it's hard because I failed at it many, 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 many times. I've tried many times to go specific, and that's another thing. The scaling piece. Right now, my big rock, my frog, my daily frog that I have to eat right now, is, in order to truly scale what we're doing, I need to create a small army of copywriters, and they likely are going to need to be on payroll. And I'm the guy that 1099mafia.com is mine. I am all about freelancing and freedom and independence, and having people I don't have to babysit. And I love it. I love the style, helps with overhead and all that stuff. But ultimately, for me to make it to the next level, I'm going to have to bring on some permanent staff that aren't partners. And that is,
Yeah,
I've tried before and I failed hard, but that is the next step. So that's one of the things I'm working on now.
that's funny, because that's exactly what I'm doing. Right, we just
Mhm.
over the last year, we've hired our first 3 people full time, and we're working through that right now, and like, we're getting everyone full time, and realizing that, like, it's a very different world to be in, where you have staff on, But I think we've sort of unlocked the whole scaling thing, because I know, like, the way we've got all our systems put together now, I can, if we keep the growth measured, right, we can scale ad nauseum, right? So with our agency, because of the skill level of the people that we need, is not astronomical, right? It's like there's a nice medium skill level that should be pretty easy to find people who can do the work we need to get done,
Yep.
and we can scale that way. And it's like, as long as we don't like bring in 10 clients at once and blow up our systems, we'll be fine. But we can scale as much as we want, which is really a cool place to be. But I have to learn that whole new skill set, like how to be a CEO and how to build a company culture and how to hire and manage
Yeah.
staff, and like how to train other people to manage and hire your staff. Like, so that's
I'm
like the whole
probably
world
just
I'm learning
gonna
how to figure
hire
out right now.
honestly. Like, I was like, hey,
Yeah.
can you just do that? I mean, it comes to a point, and that's part of the specialization game, is that you truly, the human mind just can't do all those things. There are actual boundaries. I
Yeah.
mean, skills can be developed over time, but we don't have like 400 years of lifespan yet.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'll probably have to hire a CEO at some point too, because we travel all the time and we'll probably need it at some point.
yeah, it's as I said, I want to be able to scale, but ultimately, uh, I know there's still room to just increase margins and to deliver better campaigns so that it increases retention. That's the nice thing about us, is that we're not incentive based, but if we do good work, 9 times out of 10 we're rewarded with more work. So it's a
Nice.
really great
Yeah.
speed. But it also means that we don't have any like one I would consider a ballsy move that we made this past month is, and it's not all live on all our sites yet, but on the B2B side, we're actually getting out of lead gen entirely. And it's in getting out of there's not going to be any directly offered monthly recurring subscriptions, which people are like, but you have to have that. And I'm like, really? Do you though? But it's the type of thinking that, that kind of unconventional thinking that's required to go to the next level. So if I'm in the top 10% in my space right now, I want to be at the very top. I can't do what everyone else is doing. I certainly don't have the funds to outspend them in ads. Some of them just have been at it longer, so they're always going to have more reviews than me. There aren't that many that have as much experience, as far as just volume of work. But it's something that moving into a project-based model has been really scary, but it's paying off. Like, the business is healthier now, and it didn't make any sense at the time because of all this advice people give, and this is how it needs to be.
Because everyone's talking about getting into recurring models.
Yeah. I mean, you went and hired regular employees, and most people that are traveling entrepreneurial types, it's just like, you what? You're paying payroll taxes, really? Why can't you just pay them under the table or something?
Yeah, I know. I wanted real people on the team, building the culture, doing the whole bit, because that's what's going to allow us to scale and hit the goals we want to hit. And if you do it right, it actually is enabling our travel. So,
well,
rules,
that was a beautiful
play
moment.
by
I don't remember when it was, but that was definitely my. Well, if you want to look at hero's journey, that was my elixir. Was when I was on one of my road trips. I used to take tons of road trips. I've been everywhere, and I remember seeing a notification on my phone that one of my guys had taken a sales call, closed the deal, and delivered on it, and gotten a renewal while I was gone. So I wasn't necessary in my business.
Magical.
And it wasn't a lot of money. It was probably like an $800 deal or something. I almost started crying. I was like, oh my God, that is so awesome.
I remember something like that happening to me. It was a couple of years ago now, but we were doing an e-commerce thing at the time, and my dad and my brother and I went deep sea fishing off of Dana Point down there in SoCal, and I had set it up so that every time a sale was made, um, my phone would make a cha-ching sound.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the volume turned all the way up, so in my pocket the phone would cha-ching. And
Yeah.
we had just gotten to the point where we were doing some stuff that was really kicking and turning. It was going really well. And so like all the way to the boat that morning, my phone was chinging, and my brother and my dad were like, "What the hell's going on?" I'm like, "Oh, that's money coming into my pocket." And all the way out, like, you could get the cell signal like 5 miles out to the water, and it's just chinging the whole time while we're out fishing. And we get back, and my dad was like, "How much money did you make while we were fishing?" And it was like $1,200 in sales, and it's like
Yeah.
it paid for the fishing trip that day, paid for our dinner and whatnot, like the whole thing. And that was like a moment of changeover for my dad, like understanding like maybe this whole entrepreneur thing you're doing isn't so crazy.
I
But
know,
like,
right? I just read. It's interesting
yeah,
you mentioned the parents. We were talking about that before the show, before the interview, and how like parents just really don't get it. And interesting in the hero's journey. I just got the latest edition of Christopher Vogler's book, The Writer's Journey, which is like a simplified version of the monomyth. Uh, and I'm reading about the atonement of the father is one of the things that Joseph Campbell
mhm,
mapped out as being in all of the classic stories in history as being a really big thing, and how in different stories it exhibits in different ways, but ultimately being able to have a parent recognize that the wrong path that you took actually worked out, and not
yeah,
necessarily getting a high five out of the deal, just getting just acknowledgement that you weren't a complete disappointment as a kid. So, but it's like
yeah,
from like
yeah. And
beginning of time, like
I remember
caveman era,
specifically,
that's been a thing.
yeah,
So for
yeah.
you,
And
it was a
I
cell
remember
phone
specifically
notification.
like when I picked my career for college, and I clicked, and then I started doing the business stuff after college. Like my dad didn't like where I went to college, and he was like, and he like legit told me, he was like, "I think that's a dumb idea. You shouldn't do it." And I did it anyways. And
Where'd you go to
uh,
school?
I went to a Bible college, and my dad's a
Where?
scientist, and he was like, "You're not like he." Not that he didn't believe or anything like that. He was like, "You're not going to make good money there." And I was like, "That's not my plan." So, anyways, I just continued on my way, and then I started the business stuff. And he's like, "I still don't see how you're going to do this." And the whole entrepreneur career is very like
Yeah.
all over the place and twirling around, and so he's watched me build and struggle for years. And then when you finally sort of like hit your groove and start really growing, it's still up and down and whatnot. But he's like, I've grown a business that's bigger than he's ever had his income before, and he's like, now he's starting to like see that even like, he hit really high level scientist, one of the best in the world at what he did, and made good money at it. And you know I was still able to in 10 years outpace him what it took his whole life to do, because that's what you can do with entrepreneurship. And anyways, it was an interesting like recognition moment for both of us.
Interesting. Well, so you went to a Bible college when your dad was a scientist. That sounds like there's another hour worth of stories just in that. That's the those sound like some really uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah, yeah. So it's I'm a classically trained preacher. Learned a lot about instructional design and persuasion and stuff like that in college, and it's actually helped me a lot in growing my business. So it was not intentional, but cool stuff that I learned there that's applied to my business quite a lot. So,
I never intended to
well,
do an
I do want
$1 million.
to. Now it happens, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Whoops.
move on a little bit and talk about your common enemy. And so the common enemy is a thing that every superhero has their arch nemesis, right? It's a
Yep.
thing that you're constantly fighting against in your world, right? So in the world of business, it takes on a lot of forms, but generally speaking, in the context of your clients, it's a mindset or a flaw that you're constantly having to fight to overcome, right? So if you had your magic wand and you could just bop all your clients on the head right in the beginning of your relationship and get rid of it, what is that arch nemesis, so to speak, or your
Yeah, that
common
was a
enemy that you always have to fight against with your
damn good
clients?
question. That was a really good question. Uh, hmm. Well, there's always a laundry list, right, of things that. But I would say the most common thing that I see is I wish my clients were more willing to write like they talk. Uh, that would be the most. And granted, they might not need me at that point. And some of them are great, just fantastic, super sharp on their feet, quick on their feet, salespeople. They know their product inside and out because it's their thing, their baby. But like the second they get to a keyboard, it just falls apart. And sometimes hey, just talk and I'll type. Just talk and let me type. And that's not scalable, because it makes it seem less magical. Although we put into writing a three sentence email, but I would say that
that's it.
Human. And if you don't know how to talk,
that's an interesting. It's an interesting thing too, because like all the way through school, like from the very early age, they teach you how to write, and that how to write is how to write academically, right? It's not how to write the way that actually is persuasive, meaning that you get someone to actually take an action to do something with the thing that they've read, which is an entirely different way to write. And that way of writing is far, far closer to how you actually speak to other individuals. So it's like this, you have to make this shift in your head that all the rules that you learned about how many sentences are supposed to be in a paragraph and how long sentences should be and how big your words should be and how you should structure everything.
Oh yeah.
Should throw it all out the window and learn how to write like you talk, which is a cool way to put it.
It's hard. Now I've seen, I think there are certain academics who are fantastic writers, like the Heath brothers, Dan and Chip Heath, that did Decisive and Made to Stick and Power of Moments. Like those guys get it. I mean, they're very much embedded in the world of academia. And one of them is like a social psychologist. The other one is a researcher of some type. So like their day job has got to be, like for me, it would be painfully boring. But that they do a good job using story to teach, but include enough of the actual hard science to validate that they're just not blowing smoke. And I almost wish the people that were good at persuasive writing would take a little more time, maybe digging through Google Scholar and finding some stuff to back up the stuff they're saying, because some of it is just smoke and mirrors. And sometimes you need it. Sometimes you need to fake it till you make it. Sometimes that's a great survival skill, but it's not a good way to dominate a niche.
One of my favorite metaphors for writing and storytelling and the whole marketing bit is that there's two sides to it. There's data and there's story, right? And so all of your how-to information and all the things that you might be talking about and like the data, all the stuff that backs up anything that you're saying is it's just nails, right? It's like nails for building a house, and you can have a whole bunch of them there. You do need them to build the house, but they're not by themselves, they're not useful. And the stories are what drive the data home, right? They're the hammer that drives the data in. And so you have to have both. You have to have the hammer and the nails. So you have to have both parts of that.
No, I'm gonna have to steal that one. I'm gonna take full credit for you. You'll hear me on some other podcast.
You're welcome to.
This is something I came up with the other day.
It was something I stole. And I don't remember who I stole it from. So feel free to steal it again and pass it on. This is a good metaphor.
I dig it.
Because, but I say, data without stories is nails without a hammer. So the flip side then of your common enemy is your driving force, right? So if your common enemy is something that you fight against, your driving force is what you fight for. So just like Spider-Man fights to save New York, or Batman fights to save Gotham, or Google fights to index and categorize all the world's information, what is it that you fight for with inbox attack?
Attention. Actually capturing people's attention. That one person, because email is still a one-on-one medium. It could be set in mass, but it's experienced in someone's personal inbox. So it's trying battling for their attention. And
some interesting things that popped into my head when you said that too, right? So the first one is that it doesn't really matter what business you're in. The business you're in is the attention business, right? So everyone's in the attention business, whether they know it or not. And the second thing you said, which really I think is a key point, is that the email is experienced, right? It's experienced in the inbox. One of the things that sticks out to me about that is this idea that you only ever write half the experience. The other half of the experience happens when someone reads it and engages with it, and it comes alive in their mind, right? So
Hmm.
you have to sort of like, you have to think that way. You have to think about the way that this is going to come to fruition with the other person on the other end.
Yeah, I tried it years ago. We're running it was like a Black Friday campaign for a online store selling accessories or something, like fashion accessories, I think. I don't even remember, to be honest. But I asked them to um, for a call to action to ask for a reply. They're like, Nate, we've got 25,000 subscribers. I don't want thousands of emails in my inbox that I need to reply to. That's like the dumbest idea ever. He was angry that I even suggested it. And I would love to have that problem. Like getting, first of all, that high of a reply rate, getting thousands of replies to
Would be amazing.
25,000 would be pretty awesome. Right, that weren't out of office replies or opt outs would be amazing. But you're going to learn so much more than click data, and it's going to take time.
Yeah,
It'll take
really
a long time to go through all that, but it's still faster than just looking at zeros and ones and trying to guess. You just ask people what they want. You know, what do you want to buy from me? Like, there you go. There's the
And
question. There's a question. What do you want to buy from me? So answer me that. So I mean, for me, that's, that would be like a weird like dream project. But you're asking, like, what the driving force is. It's not just attention. It's really earning the attention. So doing the work necessary from a psychology standpoint and a timing standpoint and a targeting standpoint. So that person, they don't necessarily have to feel they were singled out in the crowd. And I was like, yeah, I saw you in a sea of people in this big concert hall, and I saw you from across the room, and I had to wade through everyone just to talk to you. It's not always going to be like that, but it sometimes can be in the B2B email space. But feeling that level of attention. It's that someone actually took a little extra work to find out where I lived. And even though you and I know that's called a data enrichment tool, we could figure out where people live with different like cloud tools. That still takes money and time and attention to do it. And that's the thing that it's hard, and it actually reduces ROI, but that's not the point always. The point's like if you connect with another human being in a really stale digital setting in a way that changes their emotional state a little bit. Like being able to change someone's emotional state with like 8 lines of text and then in a sea of emails in their inbox. That's pretty big.
And that's a relationship changing thing, like where they remember you, and it may not have an immediate ROI, but long term it will ROI.
Yeah, and that's it's but it's hard, like, right? But that's what that is the ultimate win. That is the sword and the stone moment. Pulling the sword from the stone is when we're able to combine everything in a way that people, they get the email and it changes their emotional state to the point that they act on it with a click, a reply, a phone call, or a share, or some form of action. Because people have thoughts and emotions running in their mind all the time, but to be able to go to a stranger or someone you don't really know, they're just a customer, and be able to convince them to do something that they wouldn't normally do, it's hard. But to do it in a way, then have them thank you for it later as well. I mean, I know that I've done a really good job in a campaign is when someone sends an opt-out email. So we'll send out a campaign for them. They send it out. Hey, it's like, I don't want this news on anymore. I really appreciate you reaching out, though. Like that means that then we know we got it. Because if they're taking the time to let us down easy, we're good. We're good.
You're doing something right.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So I want to talk a little bit about some practical things in running your business, right? We call this your hero's tool belt, right? Just like every superhero has their tool belt with awesome gadgets like batarangs or web slingers or laser eyes or whatever it might be. I'm talking about top one or two tools that you use in your business that you couldn't live without, right? So it could be anything from your notepad to your calendar to your marketing tools to something you use to do your product delivery, or maybe a template you use to write your emails, whatever it is, something that you find essential to get your job done. Top one or two things that come to mind that you're like, you know what, I couldn't run my business without these.
Glock apps. Glock apps.
Block apps? I don't even know what that is.
APPS. It's
That's like the gun, right?
Placement tool. Yeah, it's an inbox placement tool.
Okay, and what does it do?
To be able to figure out how emails behave in other different sorts of inboxes. So it helps remove a lot of the mystery from email marketing. Yeah, Glock apps is fantastic. And no, I don't have an affiliate program with them. They're just it's best bang for the buck tool out there. We use it on both sides of the business. I really like Duck Soup. It's a LinkedIn extension, well, a Chrome extension for LinkedIn for doing LinkedIn outreach. It's not very fancy. Its analytics are awful. It doesn't have a dashboard. It has all these things wrong with it, but it's like my favorite chair. It's so nice just to be able to reach out to people in a slightly personalized way and not have to copy and paste over and over and over and over again. So Duck Soup, DUXSOUP, I use a lot. I would say big fans of Mailshake. Mailshake is a email platform on the cold email side that really accessible to small business owners. It's
that you cold reach out to people.
Yeah, that's how I reached out to you. So, yep.
Nice. So you probably would have reached out to
all the stuff I'm talking about. We use to connect with you. So, yeah, nice. And we also had someone like stalk you for a while too. That is part of the whole podcast game. Is like, so just really stalk this person to the point of creeping them out, then ask to be on their show.
That works out. So
no one do that.
What's fun about all that is you probably worked with my my podcast the guy who's in charge of my podcast who handles all of those things. So I didn't see any of it until the actual interview portion. Because got to keep myself away from all the crazy stalkers.
I got the insulation, your digital blanket. Yeah.
So I'm kind of interested on the Duck Soup stuff. So I know you guys focus mainly on email, but you've mentioned LinkedIn a couple of times. So are you treating LinkedIn like messaging like an email platform?
No, it's mainly just connecting. We'll just do a personalized small batches. We're not like trying to push out 10,000 connection requests a month or whatever. LinkedIn will shut that down more often than not. But say I'm trying to connect with, VP of e-commerce at mid-size retail companies. And I find, 200 of them that I want to reach out to. I would create a target inside of LinkedIn, try to connect with them. Say maybe 20% of them accept the connection request, and a couple of weeks later, we'll send them some emails. That's the main thing different that we do is after we connect on LinkedIn, we'll wait a week or two, sometimes even 3 weeks before we follow up via email because we need to really prove to that prospect that one, we're legitimately busy. Two, they're not in some super aggressive automation. And three, that we have restraint. Showing restraint is so hard. People want oh my goodness, somebody accept the connection request. I need to reply to them right now. I'm like, no, you really don't. Okay. And if someone says, 3 weeks is probably waiting too long, but waiting a week or two is no big deal. Like people are busy and I'm legitimately that busy with my stuff. I just launched a campaign on Monday. I'm going to try to follow up with some of them on Friday, maybe. But that's how regular humans work. Yeah. So like, why would I want my automation to move faster than a human would move?
My thing that fascinates me about how I get treated on LinkedIn by all the people who are doing the aggressive automation stuff, I was like, I would never speak to someone like in a human conversation the way that I get spoken to on LinkedIn by some of these aggressive automations that people put out. And I'm like, what are you trying to accomplish? Because if you're trying to get me to do business with you, what you're accomplishing is getting me to ignore you.
The thing is, though, interestingly enough, you run the analytics and like do testing on these things. there are still people that convert with those awful automations. And that's hard to deal with
Yeah,
sometimes,
yeah.
knowing that, well, I went and did this other, like, I bought some templates off of AppSumo and just copy and pasted them into this platform and ran it, and I got like 8 clients off of it, and I was like, man, you must have some really dumb clients. But I hate saying that though, because the reality is some people are okay being sold to that way, and some
Yeah,
people
yeah.
don't like clever subject lines. Some people don't. No, they don't care. They just don't care.
Yeah.
So,
So it's one of those, like, you just have to know how you want to run your business, and sometimes if they make you feel icky, you don't want to do it. So if it
yeah,
doesn't
no,
make you feel icky,
I'm sure I've made plenty of people feel like you with campaigns that I've sent, but like one of the things that you mentioned, tools. This is more of a tactic that I just, man, whether or not people hire me, I don't care. You got to stop sending breakup emails. Okay, I've tried 5 times now to get you to reply or onto my email or click on this landing page link and fill out this form. So you must be really busy. I'm so sorry. You must be so busy. I'm not gonna bother you anymore. Like, really? It's just we don't do breakup. Don't do breakup emails. It's a better just to
yeah,
let that one die on the vine. You don't need to, you know, be doing that.
we do engagement campaigns, where if people stop engaging with emails, because, and you probably know this because you do email for a living, that if your engagement starts to drop too much, then your deliverability suffers, because the
Absolutely.
ISPs will start sticking you into other places. So we have most of the clients that we work with, when we set up some of the automations for like webinars and other things, that
Mhm.
when you have a free opt-in list, you'll grow an opt-in list significantly with ad spend, and you're putting all these new people on who haven't vetted themselves from an engagement standpoint yet. And the thing I try to teach my clients is like, you may have paid for them to come be on your list as a lead, but they haven't earned their place on your list yet.
That's a
And
good
so I try to
phrase.
teach
I like
them
that.
to like think that way. Yeah, it's like they have to earn their place on your list by showing that they're willing to engage, open, click, these kind of things. And
Mhm.
the first week of content is all designed to create engagement. And anyone that doesn't
Yeah.
engage, we kick them off. We just unsubscribe them from our list and get rid of them. Doesn't matter what you paid for them, because they will kill your deliverability, and all the people that are engaging with you and actually are going to buy from you in the future won't see your emails. And it'll actually make you suffer longer term. So
Yeah, and and
that's
ultimately
how we deal with
the
it.
sound like a human, right? It's that, like, I don't think people
Yeah.
need to be so shy about, hey, I want to sell you something. I spent weeks trying to find the type of people that would like this particular thing at this particular time. I think you might be that person. Here's what I got. Like, it's like you don't need to. That's one of the reasons I didn't mention marketing in my little triad of skills, because I think having sales skills is way, 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 way more important to email than having marketing skills. So it's
I
like
agree
your
with you there.
background
I think
preaching
sales skills
and
are,
teaching is
yeah,
way more valuable than marketing. So
the I tell people all the time that that marketing is nothing without sales. And when I worked in the corporate world, the first thing that I did, I was a director of marketing for a company, and the first thing that I did was I got the hold of the director of sales, and I was like, "Hey, our teams either work together or I quit." And it's like we built all of our marketing stuff around empowering the sales team to do a better job of what they were doing.
yep.
And so, anyways, um, it was it was fancy stuff. We managed to drastically improve their business because we did that. And it was the idea that, hey, it's not marketing and sales, it's marketing supports sales, or it doesn't do anything at all.
No, I got clients that don't even have sales teams, and I have clients that have marketing teams, and I have clients that don't have anyone doing sales or marketing. And they're big, bringing in like half. Some of them are like bringing in, $5 to $10 million a year. It blows my mind. As I said, like for every one of these things, I think I'm like, yeah, but how do those people do it? But I think they have inherent sales
With
skills,
magic
or magic. Yeah.
magic sales stuff.
Speaking of heroic tools, I want to take a few minutes to tell you about a tool we built that powers the Hero Show and is now this show's primary sponsor. Hey there, fellow podcaster. Having a weekly audio and video show on all the major online networks that builds your brand, creates fame, and drives sales for your business doesn't have to be hard. I know it feels that way because you've tried managing your show internally and realize how resource intensive it can be. You felt the pain of pouring 8 to 10 hours of work into just getting 1 hour of content published and promoted all over the place. You see the drain on your resources, but you do it anyways because you know how powerful it is. Heck, you've probably even tried some of those automated solutions and ended up with stuff that makes your brand look cheesy and cheap. That's not helping grow your business. Don't give up though. The struggle ends now. Introducing Push Button Podcasts, a done-for-you service that will help you get your show out every single week without you lifting a finger after you've pushed that stop record button. We handle everything else: uploading, editing, transcribing, writing, research, graphics, publication, and promotion, all done by real humans who know, understand, and care about your brand almost as much as you do. Empowered by our own proprietary technology, our team will let you get back to doing what you love while we handle the rest. Check us out at pushbuttonpodcast.com/hero for 10% off the lifetime of your service with us and see the power of having an audio and video podcast growing and driving micro celebrity status and business in your niche without you having to lift more than a finger to push that stop record button. Again, that's pushbuttonpodcast.com/hero. See you there. You're listening to The Hero Show, unlocking the power of influence and success.
It's all magic.
Cool. So, 2 more questions for you here on the show. So, next one is your own personal heroes, right? So, every hero has their mentors, right? Frodo has Gandalf, Luke has Obi-Wan, Robert Kiyosaki has his rich dad. Spider-Man has Uncle Ben. So, who were some of your heroes? Were they real-life mentors, speakers, authors, peers who were a couple years ahead of you? And how important were they to what you've accomplished so far in growing your business?
I would say that John Jacobson, the guy that taught me at the film school, that screenwriting school I talked about, I learned so much from him. And I hired him recently just to give me one-on-one coaching to help level up my writing skills again, just to stay sharp with the story structure and storytelling skills. But in business and just his demeanor and how he taught, he's such a good teacher. He just really understood how to crawl into people's brains and get them to remember stuff. He was a good mentor for sure.
That's cool. I feel like I need to do something with that, and like I'm pretty good at the whole storytelling thing myself, but hiring someone and just really polishing those skills, I think could do nothing but good for my business in the future.
It's hard to spend money on stuff, and when I teach it too.
Yeah,
but that's part of the deal. Like even Eric Clapton would take guitar playing lessons from BB King. Like like everyone.
If you're not growing, you're dying, right?
What's that?
I said, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Allegedly. Unless I feel like I need to sleep sometimes and just skip the growing part. Just more sleep would be great.
But what's funny about that is you grow the most while you're asleep. Like legitimately, your body grows while you sleep. So at least all my kids do.
Well, that's right.
I put them to bed at night at one size. Right?
The cells regenerate. There's all sorts of other magic that happens there. I would also say that I've got a bunch of books behind me. I mentioned the Heath brothers. I doubt they're listening to this podcast, but I really want to be mentored by both of you. they really, like, as I said, that confluence of writing and teaching and science. Oh, I want to be able to write that good. Like I'm going to write that good. Is that even correct English? I don't know. So,
that's all right. You're not writing right now. You're speaking, but maybe someday you'll get them to mentor you. That'd be fun.
No, I'm a big fan of them, and honestly, like, just I've had so many weird little, and in some cases, unwilling teachers in my life that have taught me all sorts of things. So,
it's fascinating as you grow in your life and your business. You realize how many people you learn from, and then you realize that some of those people probably don't even know that they were heroes or mentors to you. And it's interesting how that impacts your thinking, or at least how it impacts mine, realizing that I should probably live my life in a way that the people who are looking up to me, that I don't realize that I'm actually worthy of that.
That's That's some deep psychology right there. Worthiness. There's a whole different. No, it's true. Like that there are certain fundamental things that everyone wants, and everyone wants to feel worthy.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, and
marketers would
you have
say
to.
value, but I don't like that word. And they just want to feel worthy.
Yeah,
So
they want to feel worthy. That's very true. Cool. So my last question for you then is your guiding principles, right? One of the things that makes heroes heroic is that they live by a code. For instance, Batman never kills his enemies. He always brings them to Arkham Asylum. So as we wrap up the interview, I want to talk about top 1 or 2 principles that you use regularly in your life, maybe something that you wish you knew when you started out on your own hero's journey.
one of my mentors, Anthony Honorino, guy that writes the sales blog, he he does this annual thing, and I think it came from somewhere else. He hasn't taken credit for it. Called My 3 Words, and it simplifies like your goals for the year, your theme of your life, down to 3 words. And for me, right now, it's simplify, systematize, and surge. So simplify, systematize, and surge. So take the big, scary, complex problem and make it real simple. And that doesn't always mean breaking it up in smaller pieces. Sometimes it's just describing it in a more simple way. Like that piece of machinery no longer works. Right? Not my life story about how that not working is making it hard for me to feed my kids. Systematize, which is something you're going through right now, is building systems to scale. But for me, it also means looking at what pre-existing systems, frameworks, models exist to solve that problem. I don't need to like invent a new solution for every single problem in my life. Or in some cases, I could just call someone and ask, hey, do you have like a system or approach in fixing this problem? And then surge, once that's implemented, then punch the gas pedal back in and get moving. And not, you mentioned the perfectionism thing, not overthink it. Because you're going to break down again and you have to do it all again eventually anyways, regardless of how good you are. But those are the things that I'm using a lot right now. So
I like that. I might have to steal that, put it up on my wall or something, because it feels like that would really help our growth strategy. Is like, hey, because it's legitimately what I'm working on right now. Is like, let's simplify everything in the business down to like, we're doing this one thing. We're going to do it really well. We're going to build all the systems for it, and we're almost to the point where we're ready to put our foot on the gas pedal and really grow. So that should be fun.
Yeah, excited to see what happens. Like as I said, we're both in different parts of the podcast ecosystem, so it's in my best interest for you to do well.
Cool. Yeah. Well, that's basically a wrap on our interview, Nate. But I do finish off every interview with a simple challenge, right? Something I call the Heroes Challenge, and it is a selfish thing I do basically to get access to stories I might not otherwise find on my own. So the question is simple. Do you have someone in your life or in your network that you think has a cool entrepreneurial story? Who are they? First names are fine. And why should they come share their story on our show? First person that comes to your mind.
Chris Martinez from the Dude Agency. He interviewed me on his podcast, and I did some other business dealings with him earlier this year. He runs a business out of Tijuana, Mexico, and
oh, that's cool.
He's like a really he doesn't come off as like a systems badass, but he is so good at systems. But he's like a super chill guy. Crack a couple of Coronas at a little dive bar, and we just jam for a couple hours. But when he's good, his systems part of his mind is really, I'm a little jealous because he's a little younger than me and a little younger in business, but he's doing what he's able to do with being able to scale up this web development business and just the amount of headcount he's having to manage now, I'm blown away by how he does it. So yeah, Chris Martinez, Dude Agency.
That's cool. Awesome. So we'll reach out after this show and see if we can get an introduction for that. That'll be cool.
No, I'll take it. So
yeah. So in comic books, there's always the crowd of people who are standing along cheering for the hero and for their work and their acts of heroism. So as we close, what I want to do is find out where people can find you, right? So where can they light up the bat signal, so to speak, and say, hey, Nate, I really need your help with our email marketing. I think more importantly, where they can find you is who are the right types of people to actually light up the bat signal and say, you know what, we need your help.
If you're a business struggling with email, an established business struggling with email, startups is a different thing. But yeah, if you've been in business, you got something you're selling, and email's not working for you anymore, or you need it to start working because your other thing, like your Google pay-per-click or your referral structure is not doing well, then that would be a good fit. You just got to get a hold of me as email, actually. Nate@inboxattack.com. Just email me. I do check it every day. So,
Awesome.
yeah, sometimes I used to send people to my website, but that causes anxiety for me. As what if they get the wrong impression when they're on the website? I have a lot of like deep psychological, self-conscious behavior surrounding my websites. But Nate@inboxattack.com is the easiest way.
Awesome.
So
Cool. So we'll make sure that email gets in the show notes for this episode. And Nate, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story today with our audience. Before we hit this little stop record button, you have any final words of wisdom for people listening to the show?
no, just stay human. All the technology in the world doesn't change the fact that we're all still human. So I say leave that misspelling in there. Leave the misspelling in, just to see what happens.
Yeah, I like that. I actually I've had a number of times where like a client will get upset with us for like misspelling here or something going wrong there, and I'm like, yeah, but we got significantly better results because of the misspelling. So was it intentional, or was it just because we're human and that's the way that life goes? And sometimes the apology email is just another excuse to reach out.
Amen.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Nate. I appreciate it.
All right, take it easy, Richard.